Rescuers are scouring an area of sea off the island of Java for the wreckage of an airliner that crashed with 189 people on board. Lion Air flight JT610 went missing from radar just a few minutes after taking off from Jakarta. It was on its way to the city of Pangkal Pinang. We're seeing heartbreaking scenes at the airport where that aircraft was due to land. Families waiting for news of their loved ones. Among the passengers, 20 officials from the Indonesian Finance Ministry. Search teams do now believe that the plane sank. Weather doesn't seem to have been a factor in this crash. The skies were clear when the Boeing 737 went down. Now, the pilot and co-pilot had logged a combined 11,000 flying hours between them. Here with me now to discuss all this, aviation consultant Alistair Rosenshine. He's a former pilot, and you were just telling me, Alistair, that you've flown one of these planes regularly as well, a Boeing 737.
Yes, I flew the earlier models, the 100 and 200 series, which are actually materially different from this new type. What is specific about this aircraft is it's got a completely new type of engine. It's called the CFM LEAP 1B engine, and that's a very fuel-efficient engine, but it has carbon composite fan blades. And so that will be a factor that makes this aircraft somewhat different from previous models.
Well, from what we know so far, the fact that it seems to have crashed quite soon after takeoff, that the pilots both had a decent amount of experience between them, that it was a regular route as well that this plane was taking. What do you think may have been the cause of the crash?
Well, we're into speculation here with
very,
very little data on it. But from what's been shown, certainly on the internet, from the flight data radar, there's an internet-based app you can put on your phone. It shows that the aircraft climbed up, and then there were variations in the vertical speed. That means the aircraft seemed to be going up and down, and generally maintained a level height for about an 8-minute period, which is quite long when it's supposed to be climbing up to near 30,000 plus feet on its hour-long flight. So there was some handling issues with the aircraft, and then eventually the flight data radar shows it descending very rapidly into the sea.
Do you think human error could be a factor here? I mean, obviously the investigation is still ongoing, but given the fact that the plane seemingly went down just a couple of minutes into takeoff, does that indicate that there was perhaps something that the pilots were at fault with?
You're talking about human error or pilot error here, as it used to be called. It's almost impossible to say. Certainly from, you know, they made a radar call saying they wanted to go back. It's impossible to say whether or not it was pilot error. That doesn't seem like it to me. It sounds like it's probably a mechanical issue.
And we understand that, well, at least authorities think that this plane sank, and they're now sending divers down to try and retrieve, presumably, not only, of course, the victims, but black boxes and things like that as well, that might give some more indication as to what happened.
Well, yes, here we're talking about the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. The cockpit voice recorder will record typically about 2 hours of conversation in the flight deck, and that's very important for the accident investigators to reproduce what was happening on the flight deck, so you get the human aspect of it, and whether, you know, the calls for emergency checklists or whatever the two pilots are talking about. And then you've got the flight data recorder, which can record up to 700 parameters, and so all the flight control movements, the pilot's movements of the controls, engine power, fuel flows, etc. And that, you know, you picture these together, and they can reproduce the flight on a computer and show exactly what had happened.
You talked a little bit earlier, Alistair, about this aircraft, a Boeing 737. You're very familiar with them, of course, but this was a recent purchase, I understand, by Lion Air, this budget airline in Indonesia, and a relatively a new plane.
Well, it was only a few months old, and as you mentioned earlier, the pilots had a lot of experience flying this thing. But with a new aircraft, you have you're not looking at the sort of problems you would find with an older one when things start to go wrong, break, have to be replaced. But then you do sometimes have teething problems with a new aircraft. In this case, it's a completely new type of engine and a new model of aircraft. So Boeing's going to be particularly interested, as indeed does CFM, the aircraft manufacturers. Very interested in what caused this.
Yeah, thank you so much for your expertise on this devastating tragedy that is still unfolding in Indonesia. Alistair Rosenshine, we appreciate it.